Well, hello everybody. This is Mac, and we're going to do absolute value inequalities. Now, we talked a little bit the first time about what I called innies and outies. Okay, whenever you have an absolute value of x and it's a less than a blah, what we do is we're going to just write an x. We're going to do two less than signs, and we're going to go negative blah and blah. Okay, and so that's what we do when it's x less than. If I have an absolute value of x greater than blah, blah is whatever we want to call it, right? We're just going to write x is greater than blah. But then we also have to write x, switch the sign to less than a negative blah. And what you're going to get on the smaller ones, you're going to get one where you're going to get a couple dots and it's going to be in between. And then on this, you're going to get one with a couple dots and it's going to be on the outsides. Okay. So let's go ahead and go through these a little bit and let's learn how to do them. So if I look at this, I'm going to go up here. Absolute value of x is less than. When it's less, it's an any. So I'm going to do my x and I'm going to make it an any. If it's has the equal, got to write the equal 6 and negative 6. That's the blah and the negative blah in my example. Okay. So I'm going to call this a negative 6 and I'm going to call this 6, even though if we add up the numbers, there's not really 12 in there, but just go with it. It's just kind of a limitation of this graph I'm using. All right. I got to use dots. And because it is in between, it's a tweener, we're going to go boom, and we're going to go in between. That's what I mean when I call them innies. Okay, if the x is in the middle, it's always going to go in between like that. Okay, let's continue on. Let's go on to number 2. Now, this one, they throw a little negative sign out there. Watch that. How sneaky is that? So when you see a negative, that's like a -1. So I have to divide each by -1. Now, what do you guys know about dividing by -1s with inequalities? That's right. I'm going to get an absolute value of x minus 2. I have to switch the sign to greater than. -4 divided by -1 is a 4. So now on this one, it was going to be an innie, but it's not an innie anymore. Now it's an outie. So how do I do the outies? Well, if I use that as my example, but let's just do it here. Let's not even look at that. X minus 2 is greater than 4. You just write it. But then you got to do another one where you go x minus 2, but instead of greater, you're going to go less than a -4. Okay, and then all we're going to do is solve, and I'm going to get x is greater than 6. And then here, all I'm going to do is solve, and I'm going to get x is less than -2. And this is going to be one of my outies, okay? So if I'm going to call this -2, and there's no equal sign, I'm going to put a hole, and it's a less than, so it'll go that way. And this one, x is greater than 6, and -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hey, it fits. I'm going to put a 6, I'm going to put a hole, and x is greater, so I'm going to go that way. Okay? And so that is how you do an outie. So there's an innie and there's an outie. Okay, number 3 shows greater than. Well, that's the outie. So x plus 5 is greater than 3, and then you write x plus 5 is less than a -3. Solve it. X is greater than -2. Solve this one, and you're going to get x is less than a negative, well, it's kind of ugly, less than a -8. If any of that's too fast for you, go to Unit 2 in maxtutorials.com, and that will really help you out, okay? So let's call this one -8, and that's going to be a hole in the graph, and its x is less than, okay? And then let's go over here and let's just call this -8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. This would be my -2. That also needs a hole, and x's are greater, so it would be the one going that way, and that would be your answer. Okay? Let's go on to number 4. They're tricking us again. What are they doing with that negative sign? So let's start by dividing each of them by a -1, and now I'm going to get absolute value of 2x is less than or equal to a +8. Okay, so now that's the innie. So by innie, I mean I'm going to write 2x, and then I'm going to write less than signs on both sides. I'm going to go -8, and I'm going to go +8. That's the setup. That's the big thing in this section you need to know. Once you know that, it's just a matter of finishing. Okay? And we have another unit that I did where we went how to do compound inequalities. We just solve them like that. Okay? So now to graph it, we're just going to have a -4. There are 3, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to have a 4 right here. I'm going to use a little bit of a thicker line to be a little more on point here. Boom, boom, boom. And this one, boom. And sorry, that's an innie. So I did that very incorrectly. Okay, boom, boom, boom. And then the X is in the middle. So we are going to go ahead and do a line right like that. Okay, let's go on to number 5 here. Okay, so zoom in, and there's no weird thing here. That's just an innie. So I'm going to write x minus 7. I know it's an innie because it's a less than sign. Less than sign means innie. And so I put it inside, and I'm going to go a -5, and I'm going to go a +5. There's the setup. Now I'm just going to go add 7 to all 3 sides. They die, and here I'm going to get a 2 is less than x, which is less than 12. And I don't have 10 spots on here, I don't believe. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to call that a 2, and I'm going to call that a 12, whether they really are or not. Okay, and there's a hole, and there's a hole, and it's an innie. So on an innie, I'm just going to go in between. Okay, number 6. Oh, that's definitely an outie. All right, because that's a greater than sign. Greater than sign means we're going to do outies. All right, so outies, I just write them. 3x plus 3 is greater than equal to 9. Or I can write 3x plus 3, that's an ugly 3, is less than or equal to a -9. Switch the sign, make it negative. That's how we do these, okay? So I'm going to subtract 3. What if it said equals a -9? What would you do? I haven't really done any of those. I probably should have explained more of those. If it said an absolute value is, say, less than a -9, well, you can't. An absolute value can't be a negative number. Okay, so that's where you have some trouble. So that's why all these have positive numbers. Otherwise, there would be just no solution answers. Okay, so let's divide each side by 3. I'm going to get x is greater than or equal to 2. And on this one, when I subtract 3 from both sides, I'm going to get 3x is less than or equal to, add a line, change the sign, -12. Divide everybody by 3, x is less than or equal to -4. And I know that because it's a greater sign, it's going to be an outie. So I'm going to start with my -4 here. And x is less than or equal, so it's got to be a dot. Let me get my thicker lines up. And it's going to go that way. Okay, and then I went there 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2. Here's my 2, and that's going to get a dot because it's equal and x's are greater. So I'm going to go that way, and that, my friends, is why we call them outies. All right, let's go 4 more here. Now this one, they threw that negative out. They're trying to trick us. So step number 1 is I got to divide by a -1. Once I do that, I get an absolute value of x plus 1. And now, because I divided by -1, I have to switch the sign. Okay, so my innie now became an outie. So now that I have that, I'm going to write x plus 1 is greater than equal to 2. And then I'm going to write x plus 1 is less than or equal to a -2. That is the big setup. That is the big idea of this section. Okay? So now when I do this, I know it's an outie. Let me get my thicker line going. I'm going to do a 1 right there, and x's are greater or equal to 1, so I need a dot, and it needs to be greater than. This one now, 0, -1, 2, with a 0, and a 1, no, 2, -3. It's going to go right here, and that's going to be a circle because of the equal sign, and x's are less, so it goes that way, and that is why it is an outie. All right, so let's keep going here. Let's see. X minus 6 is less than equal to 4. Less than equal means it's an innie. X minus 6, and I'm going to do one of these guys. And this is going to be a 4, and that's going to be a -4. Okay, I'm going to add 6 to both sides. And this is going to be a 2 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 10. So I'm going to call him 2, and I'm 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Hey, it fits on. And there we go. All right. So now they both have equal signs, so they both get full-blown dots. Okay. And it's an innie, so we do the inside. All right, 2 more here. So this one, up, can't do anything with that 2 out in front. So I got to divide each side by 2. They die. And I get x plus 4 is greater than 4. Okay? And then, well, absolute value. So now I know it's have an absolute value is greater. That's an outie. Outies are x plus 4 is greater than 4. and the other one is x plus 4 is less than a negative 4. Now that I subtract 4 from both sides, x is greater than 0, or once I subtract 4 from both of these guys, I'm going to get x is less than a negative 8. Okay, so let me write a negative 8 here, and I know x is less than, so it's going to be a whole, and it's going to go that way. And x is greater than 0, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And there we go. There's my outies, okay? One more, it looks like an outie, but if I divide each by a negative 1, get rid of that negative sign, I'm going to get absolute value of x minus 3. And what do I have to do? Instead of that greater than, I have to make it a less than sign. And negative 5 divided by negative 1 is going to be just a normal everyday 5. Okay, so now I have an ini. How do I write inis? I'm going to write x minus 3, and I'm going to put 2 less than signs, and I'm going to write 5, and I'm going to write negative 5. And then once I add 3 to both sides, I get negative 2 less than x less than 8. Okay, so I'm going to write a negative 2 there, and I'm going to write an 8 right here, and I'm going to put holes in both of them, and then they're innies, so I go like that. Thanks for plugging through on this version B. I am going to do a version C as well if you need more help, but the big thing is actually right up here. And so sometimes seeing it like in the formula doesn't make a lot of sense to you, but hopefully going through and seeing, less thans or innies, greater thans or outies, that'll be something that can help you move forward when you see this on your tests, okay? Great job, guys. I'll see you on version C.